Chapter 6:17. What are you all still in a daze for? Go down and save your sister-in-law. Ji Tsang Tian swallowed his anger as he dashed to the side of the stream and jumped down directly. Those 20 over members who had been following Ji Tsang Tian also jumped down when they saw that. This kind of thing, which could show their face in front of the group leader and wasn't dangerous at all, they were naturally more than willing to snatch it. The remaining 30 over members who had fought together with the world group previously, as they didn't like Lan Ling Nua, they hesitated for a moment. Eventually they walked to the side of the stream and jumped down. The group of them were in the stream, which wasn't considered spacious, but they still weren't able to catch Lan Ling Nua. Lan Ling Nua would surge down from time to time and pop her head out from time to time, making a grumbling sound before sinking back down. Ji Tsang Tian's heart ached for her. After a long time, even if it was a scorching hot day, soaking in the stream for a long time in such a cold place would make one feel cold. There were already quite a number of members who used the pretense of saving Lan Ling Nua, but in actual fact, they were secretly searching for the magic cores and magic crystals which Yi Qing Luo had thrown into the stream. Standing in the dark, the crowd who were admiring this scene in satisfaction had a carefree smile on their lips. Is it fun? Dmo Xian glanced sideways at the smiling young lady beside him as his gentle peach blossom eyes overflowed with a helpless smile. Yi Qing Luo's brows rose slightly as she rested her head on his shoulder. It's fun. How could it not be fun? Yi Qing Luo moved her fingers, and under the sunlight's illumination, an extremely fine silver thread could be seen faintly, from the feather fan in her hands, directly climbing to the side of the stream, onto that Lan Ling Nua who was struggling non-stop. That's right. 50 over people in a small stream, unable to save Lan Ling Nua. Lan Ling Nua would occasionally float up to the surface and occasionally pop her head out to catch her breath, which was all Yi Qing Luo's doing. This patient with princess syndrome not only had a problem with her brain, there was also a problem with her worldview. Time and time again, she had provoked her bottom line, so don't blame her for treating her as a performance toy for the world group's youngsters to entertain themselves after the battle. Seeing that Lan Ling Nua was tormented till she was half dead, Yi Qing Luo then shook her fingers as she silently retracted the silver thread. Following that, she put on an innocent and comfortable look as she leaned on Dmo Xian's shoulder, smiling like a flower. Without the control of the silver threads, Lan Ling Nua was quickly rescued ashore. After soaking in the water for the time it takes to brew a cup of tea, the blood on her head had been washed away, but she had already fallen into a coma. She was even shivering non-stop. It was obvious that she had been soaked in the water. The exquisite makeup on her face was washed away. Although her facial features were exquisite, they weren't as stunning as before. Ji Tsang Tian hugged Lan Ling Nua tightly, but he was also drenched, so how could he warm Lan Ling Nua? They also didn't have the habit of bringing spare clothes out for missions. Ji Tsang Tian touched Lan Ling Nua's forehead and it burned his palm. It was obvious that he had caught a cold. He took out his interspatial pocket and rummaged through it for pills. However, the medicinal pills he brought out were all for treating injuries. There were no medicinal pills for treating colds. Lan Ling Nua shivered unconsciously and kept shouting that she was cold. Her soft and delicate body continuously rubbed against his chest. If this dragged on, Lan Ling Nua might not be able to hold on any longer. At least, he had to let Lan Ling Nua change into a set of clean clothes. Ji Tsang Tian bit his lips tightly as he hesitated in his heart for some time. In the end, he still couldn't bear to see his beloved woman suffer as he looked towards Yi Qing Luo and the others. Take off your clothes. She had to admit that this Ji Tsang Tian's prince syndrome was rather serious. Things had already come to this stage and he still used a commanding tone to speak to her. Chapter 6:18. Ji Tsang Tian clenched his fists tightly. You're the one who threw Sister Nua into the stream. Shouldn't we take responsibility? Yi Qing Luo seemed as though she had heard the funniest joke in the world as she clutched her tummy and burst out laughing. Your sister Nua cares so much about her appearance. I'm just trying to make her face a little cleaner. Pausing for a moment, Yi Qing Luo placed her feather fan on her lips as her vision swept past those group members who were like drowning dogs. What's more, as your woman and their sister-in-law, I should at least contribute to your mercenary group. Ji Tsung Tian said angrily, whether or not Sister Noa wants to contribute to the Blue Dragon group is our group's matter. What has it got to do with you? Yi Qing Luo nodded in realization. Oh yes, it has nothing to do with us. After saying that, she stretched her limbs and turned to look at her brothers. The farce is over. Let's go, let's continue with our quest. The youngsters of the world group stood up in an orderly manner. Ji Tsung Tian clenched his teeth as he couldn't wait to rush up and dismember Yi Qing Luo into 1,000 pieces. But looking at the woman in his arms, who was losing consciousness, he gritted his teeth and suppressed his anger. He then softened his tone. Miss Yi, it was my fault for using the wrong words. Could you please be magnanimous and let me borrow some clothes for Sister Noa? Standing at the side, the members who were wringing their drenched clothes had an indescribable feeling in their hearts. In their eyes, the high and mighty regiment commander had lost his brilliance and prestige for the sake of a woman. Now, he had even thrown away his own pride. They were conflicted. On the one hand, he was bitterly disappointed in his regiment commander, but on the other hand, he remembered the trials and tribulations they had gone through together. On one hand, he wanted to leave the Blue Dragon group, but on the other hand, he couldn't give up his feelings for the group. As a result, compared to their regiment commander's displeasure, they hated Lan Ling Noa even more. They secretly swore that if Lan Ling Noa dared to be disloyal to their group leader, even if they had to bear the consequences of being kicked out of Blue Dragon mercenary group, they would kill Lan Ling Noa. Miss Yi, we don't want those demon cores anymore. If you have extra clothes, just lend us one. One by one, the group members started to plead. Ji Tsung Tian stared fiercely at the group member who said that as he opened his mouth to stop him. But on seeing Yi Qing Luo's disdainful gaze, he instantly shut his mouth. Now, he was the one who needed her help. He could give up on the magic cores. He could give up on the mana crystals. But Lan Ling Noa must not be allowed to die. Originally he thought that Yi Qing Luo would be extremely difficult to deal with, even taking the opportunity to humiliate him, so Ji Tsung Tian was already mentally prepared. However, Yi Qing Luo only revealed a difficult expression, propped her chin and pondered for a moment. Actually, it's just a piece of clothing. It's not impossible. Ji Tsung Tian suddenly raised his head. Not only will I give you a set of clothes, I can let all of you change into dry clothes. Yi Qing Luo's long and narrow eyes hooked up into a crafty arc. Clearly, he was plotting something. Even though he knew it was a scheme, Ji Tsung Tian could only bear with it. What conditions do you have? Right now, it should be 5 in the afternoon. That was around 3 to 5 in the afternoon. Because of your disturbance, a large portion of our mission has not been completed. Yi Qing Luo intentionally paused, as her finger pointed to the group members standing by the side. Your beloved has turned into such a state, so I'm sure you don't have the mood to continue with the mission. I need you to lend me some men, to help our group complete the mission. Ji Tsung Tian's brows creased tightly as his entire face creased into a ball. Borrow people? Was this a forceful headhunting? Chapter 619. This explanation might as well not explain at all. What was meant by only taking young and handsome young men and young ladies? What was meant by they were too old? Wasn't this blatantly ridiculing their age? The faces of the members of the Blue Dragon group twitched uncontrollably. Did she need to be so damaging? The World Group's youngsters all laughed out loud. After our mission is completed, we will naturally let them go back. Yi Qing Luo shrugged her shoulders with an indifferent look. This condition, whether to change or not, will depend on you guys. Ji Tsung Tian turned silent. Those group members also turned silent. Yi Qing Luo had been paying attention to them all the time. From the looks of it, they were using the mercenary group badge to carry on their internal communication. Yi Qing Luo wasn't in a hurry. Based on Ji Tsung Tian's abnormal concern towards Lan Ling Noa, even if she asked him to kill his brothers by his side, in exchange for a chance for Lan Ling Noa to survive, he would probably agree to it. So Ji Tsung Tian would definitely agree to this condition. As expected, not long later, Ji Tsang Tian raised his head as he squeezed out each and every word from the slits of his teeth. All right. I agree to it. Yi Qing Luo didn't hesitate as she directly walked towards that group of members and casually pointed. Very quickly, she pointed out those 30 over people who had taken part in the magical beast battle. I only want these people. As for the rest, just treat them as escorting you back to your encampment. Ji Tsang Tian was patient, and on seeing that she had finally finished choosing, he hurriedly opened his mouth. Clothes. Yi Qing Luo turned her head towards the world group's youngsters. Young youngsters, take off your clothes. When the world group's youngsters heard that, they were all stunned. They thought that Yi Qing Luo's realm ring had a lot of clothes. They had not expected that she actually wanted them to take off their clothes. This was the uniform which they had been wearing for less than 3 days. Even if it was already soaked in blood, even if it was torn, it still represented their group's uniform. These youngsters were unwilling, and Ji Tsang Tian frowned. You want us to wear your clothes? Up to you. Yi Qing Luo replied impolitely. You. Ji Tsang Tian's muscles tensed up as his anger had already rushed to the top of his head. Lan Ling Nua unconsciously moaned in pain as her little face flushed an abnormal shade of red, and her body, which had crashed into his embrace, was boiling hot. Ji Tsang Tian panted heavily as he suppressed his anger. Yes. Go get changed, Long Yunzhan said calmly. The teenagers hesitated for a moment, and then one by one, they got into the bushes at the side and began to change their clothes. Yan Xiaoyi had ordered 2 sets of uniforms for everyone, and everyone was wearing them. After a while, sets of clothes piled up on the ground. The youths changed into clean uniforms and walked out. This scene made Ji Tsang Tian's eyes twitch. There were clean clothes, but he had to give them dirty clothes. But this time round, Ji Tsang Tian had learned his lesson and didn't mention it again. Sloppy clothes were better than these soaked clothes. A group member picked a slightly cleaner set of clothes from the pile and passed it to Ji Tsang Tian. Ji Tsang Tian carried Lan Ling Nua and was just about to help Lan Ling Nua change her clothes when he suddenly saw a piece of clothing covering his head. Just as he was about to tear off the thing covering his head, he heard a lady's clear and sweet voice. These are clothes which I have not worn before. You wouldn't wish for your sister Nua to wear other men's clothes, right? That one sentence successfully made Ji Tsang Tian's twisted fingers loosen up. Indeed, he wasn't willing for Lan Ling Nua to wear other men's clothes. Looking at Ji Tsang Tian's back view as he went into the forest to help Lan Ling Nua change her clothes, Yi Qing Luo's lips curled into a crafty cold arc. Chapter 620. The youngsters of the world group had already changed into a new set of uniforms as they walked out of the forest cleanly. The members of the Blue Dragon group, on the other hand, took their dirty, blood-stained clothes and went to the jungle to change their wet clothes. Even though they were men, after soaking in the water for such a long time and being eroded by the Yin Qi in the magical beast forest, they still couldn't bear the cold. Even if it was dirty and messy, she could only grit her teeth and wear it. A portion of them entered the bushes to change, while a portion of the group members who had changed surrounded Ji Tsang Tian's surroundings, forming a meat wall, wrapping him up tightly without leaving any gaps. As though he was worried that the people on Yi Qing Luo's side would peek at his sister Nua changing. Yi Qing Luo's mouth twitched a few times as she snorted softly. The youngsters in her family were all as pure as a piece of white paper, okay? The youngsters in her family weren't blind, all right? Only Ji Tsang Tian had the appetite to swallow a woman like Lan Ling Nua. He wondered what expression Lan Ling Nua would have after she woke up and found out that her entire body had been seen and touched by Ji Tsang Tian. It would definitely be very exciting. The World Group's youngsters were filled with displeasure as they stared at Blue Dragon Group's side, simply not understanding why Yi Qing Luo wanted to make a deal with them. Even if they didn't need the help of the Blue Dragon Group, they would still be able to complete the mission after replenishing their energy. But the youngsters understood that Yi Qing Luo had her own reasons for doing so. Not too long later, Ji Tsang Tian changed into a set of dry clothes and carried Lan Ling Nua, who had similarly changed out as he walked out. The water on Lan Ling Nua's head and face had already been wiped dry. Her face was pale, and she was still unconscious. Standing in front of the group members, Ji Tsung Tian only stared coldly at Yi Qing Luo for a while before carrying Lan Ling Nua, not even turning his head back as he walked towards the entrance of the 4th level. Lan Ling Nua's body was already boiling hot like it was about to catch fire. He had to bring Lan Ling Nua to find a doctor as soon as possible. He knew clearly that if he were to start a dispute with Yi Qing Luo now, he would absolutely not gain any advantage. That woman was as cunning as a fox. It was as if he knew his feelings for Lan Ling Nua and was unscrupulous. Revenge is a dish best served cold. As long as the World Mercenary Group was still mingling in the mercenary world, he had plenty of methods to take revenge. In the eyes of the members of the Blue Dragon Group, this kind of behavior was not what they thought. Those 20 over people who weren't chosen chased after Ji Tsung Tian's footsteps with wild joy. They had long wanted to leave this damned place. The air was filled with the smell of blood and gloomy qi. If it wasn't for the mission, they really didn't want to take a step here. Whereas for those 30 over people who were chosen by Yi Qing Luo, their expressions were extremely ugly as they stared at Ji Tsung Tian's departing figure. Was he going to abandon them just like that? He didn't even say a word of comfort. A feeling of abandonment rose in the hearts of these members. Recalling the scene where Ji Tsung Tian wanted them to leave the Blue Dragon Group, disappointment immediately filled his heart. They suddenly did not know why they had been so persistent all this time. While everyone was staring at those members of the Blue Dragon Group, Yi Qing Luo's fingertip hooked onto Shiju's shoulder as she leaned close to its ear and whispered a few words. Shiju blinked its eyes and howled softly. In a blink of an eye, Shiju's figure disappeared from Yi Qing Luo's shoulder. Qing Luo, that little slut deserves it even if she froze to death. Why do you still need to give her clean clothes? Yan Xiaoyi furrowed her brows in indignation. Chapter 621. Scapegoat. The youths were puzzled. Yi Qing Luo's smile didn't diminish as her feet moved and she had already turned into an afterimage, speedily nearing the entrance of the 4th level. Among the dense trees, everyone's expressions tightened as they stared at Yi Qing Luo's actions. Following that, he saw Yi Qing Luo's lightning-fast figure and in a few breaths, she had already pinched a black-robed man as she walked out. That black-robed man's face flushed red from being pinched, as he kept struggling to pry Yi Qing Luo's fingers away. He was originally hiding in the dark, paying attention to Yi Qing Luo and the others' actions. His concealment was absolutely impeccable. He had not expected that in the blink of an eye, it had fallen into Yi Qing Luo's hands. It was so fast that he still hadn't realized what had happened. Assassin. Yan Xiaoyi's beautiful eyes suddenly widened as she looked at the black-robed man in Yi Qing Luo's hands and speedily rushed forward. Someone wants to kill us? Yi Qing Luo nodded her head as her squinted eyes revealed an enchanting brilliance. Earlier when she was dealing with Child Yin, she had already discovered an unfamiliar aura in the dark. However, this aura wasn't strong, and it had been lingering outside the battlefield. This kind of aura. To Yi Qing Luo, who was once a killer, she was absolutely not unfamiliar with it. There were assassins lying in ambush nearby. After Yi Qing Luo sensed carefully, she confirmed that there was only one killer. It was probably an assassin who was secretly monitoring their movements. Yi Qing Luo wasn't so silly to think that this killer dared to assassinate them alone. If the killer dared to come here alone to investigate the situation, he must have an accomplice. Yi Qing Luo casually threw the killer towards Xiao Jin and immediately drew out a handkerchief as she slowly wiped her hands. Xiao Jin hurriedly trapped the killer. He stared at the killer for a long time before his face suddenly lit up. Your scapegoat is referring to this? Seeing Yi Qing Luo nodding her head, the World Group's youngsters started to laugh unkindly. That's what they said, anyone who offended their Madame Qing Luo, no matter who it was, they could forget about having it easy. Let's observe a moment of silence for those mercenaries. The youths all closed their eyes and observed a moment of silence. In fact, he couldn't hide the smile on his face. He had to admit that Yi Qing Luo was indeed treacherous. The assassins did not know who their target was. But no matter who the target was, Ji Tsang Tian and the others had to take the blame. This was not a light scapegoat. If he was not careful, he might be smashed to death by this walk. If the killer's target was the world group, when Ji Tsang Tian and the others left the magic beast forest, they would definitely be surrounded by those killers. If the killer's target was the world group or Yiqing Luo, Ji Tsang Tian and the others had left the magic beast forest and they were wearing the world group's uniform. Those killers wouldn't care if Ji Tsang Tian and the others were from the world group, as they would definitely make a move on them who were wearing the world group's uniform. If it wasn't for the fact that she had already planned it out in her heart, how would she possibly be so kind as to make a deal with Ji Tsang Tian? Ji Tsang Tian's entire heart was on Lan Ling Nua, and if it was as expected, after meeting the killers, he would definitely abandon those group members and leave on his own. As for the remaining members, they looked like cowards who were afraid of death. After being abandoned by Ji Tsang Tian, their hearts were in a mess, so not many of them would be able to survive. As for the reason why they chose these members of the Blue Dragon Corps, she had once said that she admired capable people. These cultivators all had a pure and innocent heart, but their ability had been buried by Ji Tsang Tian, that person who had high expectations but low ability. And, most importantly, Chapter 622. When Blue Dragon Group's 30 over members heard that, their expressions instantly changed as they swiftly turned around, wanting to save Ji Tsang Tian and his group of brothers. Stand right there. A chilly command was heard, making one shudder. Those 30 over members subconsciously stopped in their tracks as their bodies stiffened, not daring to move. Yiqing Luo walked slowly towards them as her devastatingly beautiful face was masked with a faint layer of frost. Step by step, she walked extremely slowly. Every single step she took made an extremely soft sound. In those members' ears, it was as though that step had stepped on the bottom of their hearts. Heavy, powerless, unable to resist. Yiqing Luo's eyes were like ice as she calmly glanced at them. Your group leader has already handed over your authority in the Magic Beast Forest to me. We're going to save. Before they could finish their words, they were interrupted by Yiqing Luo's ridiculing laughter. Save? It's too late. You're all very clear on how much your group leader values that princess. She won't be able to hold on for much longer, and your group leader must have hastened his pace. By now, he should have already met with those killers. The 30 over members' expressions turned uglier by the minute. Their original admiration towards Yiqing Luo had now turned into thick anger. As compared to their admiration towards Yiqing Luo, they were more inclined towards the Blue Dragon mercenary group which they had gotten along with for the past few years. There were simply too many brothers here who had once gone through life and death together. Yiqing Luo actually schemed for the killers to assassinate the Blue Dragon group. She wanted to borrow the killer's hands to kill Ji Tsang Tian. They were going to save Ji Tsang Tian. No matter how inconsiderate today's group leader was, no matter how much he made their hearts turn cold because of Lan Ling Nua. Group leader was after all the group leader. This was a deeply ingrained fact. As long as you're still Blue Dragon mercenary group's mercenaries, you have to listen to my commands obediently. Yiqing Luo's lips curled slightly as she raised her index finger and gave an enchanting smile. Your group leader personally promised me. More than 30 members, who had lifted their feet, abruptly retracted their feet. Yes. This was the deal that Ji Tsang Tian and Yiqing Luo had made. In the Magic Beast Forest, they must help the world group to complete their mission, unconditionally coordinating with Yiqing Luo's actions. But if they knew that Ji Tsang Tian and the others were being chased by the killers and they still stood by the side, how were they going to face Blue Dragon Group? One side was love, the other side was righteousness. They really didn't know how to choose. Even if you rush over now, it's of no use. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with ridicule as she stared at the struggling expressions of these group members. His voice suddenly paused as he gave an innocent smile. Of course, if you insist on going against the deal and leave the world group, I won't force you. Since they had already spoken to this extent, would they dare to leave so easily? Blue Dragon Mercenary Group was preparing to upgrade to a Silver Plate Mercenary Group, and they must not have any negative comments. They had totally witnessed Yi Qing Luo's mouth. If they really left now to save Ji Tsang Tian and the others, Yi Qing Luo could totally spread the news of Blue Dragon Group violating the deal. At that time, when the Mercenary Union was reviewing the Mercenary Group's promotion, if they discovered this dark secret, it was very likely that the Mercenary Group's promotion would fail. Thinking of this, they gritted their teeth and suppressed the displeasure in their hearts. They stood where they were and did not mention anything about leaving. Chapter 623. The black-robed man struggled with all his might as his eyes opened wide, revealing a ferocious gaze as he bared his teeth in an attempt to intimidate Xiao Jin. The black-robed man had heard Yi Qing Luo and the rest's conversation clearly, and had heard everything clearly. These children, who looked to be no more than 15 or 16 years old, actually had such deep scheming minds. Not only did they discover him who was hiding in the dark, they were even able to swiftly counterattack. Killing with a borrowed knife? This wasn't merely killing with a borrowed knife. It would also cause the Blue Dragon Mercenary Group to form a feud with their killer alliance. Even if they had recognized the wrong person and killed the wrong person. But in Ji Tsang Tian's eyes, he would definitely ascertain that these killers were here for him, Ji Tsang Tian. The black-robed man struggled to send out a signal flare, trying to warn his partner. But Xiao Jin's hands, which were clasping the killer's arms, were extremely tight. Who sent you here? Yi Qing Luo walked towards the black-robed man as her vision swept past him. Who's your target? Pui. The black-robed man spat out fiercely. Damn! You still dare to be so arrogant in my hands. Xiao Jin instantly exploded as he threw him onto the ground and immediately stomped on the black-robed man's chest. This stomp was filled with strength. The black-robed man coughed fiercely as blood spurted out from his mouth. He kept on coughing violently as his body kept on shaking. A wooden token slid out from his messy open shirt. The black-robed man's eyes widened in terror as he stretched out his hand in an attempt to snatch that wooden token back. His hand had just stretched out when it was stepped on by a petite foot. A fair little hand picked up that wooden token. The totem carved on the wooden token was extremely exquisite. From that outline, it looked similar to a bat. In the middle of the wooden token, there were 3 words carved in flamboyant calligraphy: Killer Alliance. Killer Alliance? Yan Xiaoyi screamed out in astonishment. Killer Alliance, that was one of the top assassins in Nirvana Realm. One must know that the weakest assassin in Killer Alliance was at Mystic Profound 5th grade realm, and their movements were remarkable. Furthermore, even if you had money, you might not be able to hire the assassins from Killer Alliance. If you wanted to hire the assassins from Killer Alliance, you had to go through connections. Ordinary people naturally heard of Killer Alliance's reputation. Especially those 30 over Blue Dragon Group members, their faces were steely green as they clenched their fists tightly. An assassin from the Assassin's Alliance, those brothers, can they fight against these killers? A few of the members could no longer hold back their worry for their brothers and ran towards the 4th level. With one person taking the lead, the other members couldn't hold it in any longer. The reputation of a mercenary group was important. But if they were to watch their brothers die, they really couldn't do it. At most, after saving those brothers, they would leave Blue Dragon Mercenary Group. With this thought in mind, the members left one by one. You people. Yan Xiaoyi chased up a few steps and pointed at those group members as she scolded, ungrateful. Leaving just like that, you really are a dog that can't be tamed. In Yan Xiaoyi and the others' hearts, Yi Qing Luo really took good care of these 30 over group members. Xiaoyi. Yi Qing Luo called out to Yan Xiaoyi as she clenched the wooden token in her hand tightly. Raising her eyes, she gave an extremely calm smile. If they don't go and save their brothers, I would instead look down on them. The Blue Dragon Group was their home. The members of the Blue Dragon Corps were their family and their brothers. If they really did not care about their brother's life and death to that extent, then they would really be known as a dog that can't be tamed. Looking at those people's departing figures, Yiqing Luo was even more certain of these people's character. These people should have a better place to develop. Chapter 624. You're thinking of. Long Yunzhan's handsome brows creased slightly, as though he was aware of Yiqing Luo's thoughts. Yiqing Luo tossed the wooden token into the profound phoenix ring and nodded decisively, yes. Long Yunzhan frowned even more. The surrounding youths did not understand the riddle between them and asked curiously. Yiqing Luo only gave a mysterious smile. Killer's Alliance. Yiqing Luo shot her gaze towards the black-robed man. The person who hired your Killer's Alliance is Yuchi family's patriarch, right? The black-clothed man no longer had the strength to struggle. He lay limply on the ground, coughing out a mouthful of blood from time to time. He looked half dead. The black-robed man didn't reply and Yiqing Luo couldn't be bothered to interrogate further. He continued, your target is me. The black-clothed man was still half dead. Yiqing Luo's eyes went into a blank as a bloodthirsty smile appeared, looking at Xiao Jin. Kill him. Killed? Xiao Jin was startled. He hadn't even gotten any information from the black-clothed man, and he was killed just like that? Kill. Yiqing Luo said without hesitation. She could already confirm that the Yuchi family had hired assassins from the Assassins Association. She should have guessed that the Yuchi family head had lost face in front of everyone, and it might even endanger the Yuchi family's position. How could the Yuchi family head let her off so easily? Patriarch Yuchi wished for nothing more than for her to die. These killers were professionally trained killers. They were a group of desperados who did not care about their own lives at all. Moreover, the habit of not being able to complete a mission no matter how big the world was had long been ingrained in his bones. Towards those who were bent on killing her, Yiqing Luo would absolutely not be lenient. The Yuchi family. There was no rush. Prey had to be slowly teased. Only then would it be interesting. After battling with Child Een and hundreds of intermediate and high-leveled magical beasts, these youths obviously felt that their abilities had become much stronger. When it came to the rest of the mission, it was practically effortless for him to obtain the magical beast's corpse. Even the eagle beast, which was the most difficult to deal with, was completed with everyone's help. During the mission, the 30 or so members who had left also returned to the team. Their expressions were ugly and the gazes they used to look at Yiqing Luo were filled with hatred. Yiqing Luo could tell. She was right. Ji Tsang Tian and the others were blocked by the killers at the entrance of the magic beast forest. Furthermore, Ji Tsang Tian brought Lan Ling Nua as they abandoned those group members and escaped. Those members had all died in the hands of the Assassin Alliance's assassins. Yiqing Luo thought that these group members would at least accuse her of being cold-blooded, accusing her of knowing everything but allowing things to happen. But, from beginning to end, none of them spoke a single word. And towards Yiqing Luo and the rest's arrangements and deployment, they were extremely cooperative. When the youngsters were in charge of killing the beasts, Yiqing Luo and Bei Ming Lu were in charge of 3 medicinal herb harvesting missions. After being promoted to Mystic Profound 8th grade, Yiqing Luo clearly felt that no matter if it was speed or skill, it had all increased by more than one level. While picking the herbs, she still had the leisure to tease the magical beasts guarding the herbs. By the time they finished all 10 missions and walked out of the magical beast forest, it was already close to midnight. In the pitch-black night sky, a bright moon hung high in the sky, dotted with stars. Having stayed in the magical beast forest for an entire day, the youths immediately felt that the outside world was too beautiful. He no longer had to endure the stench of magical beast's blood. He no longer had to endure the gloomy cold air from the surroundings. Most importantly, the 10 missions were all completed. The youngsters walked out of the magical beast forest's cold entrance, not bothering about the corpses strewn all over the place, not bothering about the other teams who passed by them. Chapter 625. The 30 over members who had been silent swept a glance at those youngsters lying on the ground. Their gazes swept past those corpses as their brows creased slightly. Following that, they cupped their fists in a manner that wasn't considered polite but wasn't lacking in manners. Since your group's mission has been completed, we've also completed the transaction between the two groups, so we shall take our leave now. Saying that, the group of them turned around and left. Wait a minute. Yiqing Luo's clear voice was like a pearl falling on a plate as it reverberated in this silent and spacious magic beast forest entrance. 30 over members stopped in their tracks. Does Miss Yi have any other instructions? Their words had pulled the distance between the two of them apart, as though they didn't want to be involved with Yiqing Luo at all. Admiring someone was easy. Hating someone was also very easy. At this very moment, in the 30 over members' eyes, Yiqing Luo was an extremely vicious lady who was adept at scheming. In order to protect herself, she didn't mind sacrificing other people's lives. Yiqing Luo seemed as though she couldn't see the disdain and disgust in the members' eyes as she revealed a sweet smile and took out a piece of xian paper and a pen from the profound phoenix ring. She picked up the pen and wrote the world group's 3 words on the xian paper and immediately removed the mercenary group badge. Twisting the pin on the mercenary group badge, it was a symbol of vice group leader's seal. Yiqing Luo stamped the top of the xian paper and her slender fingers folded the xian paper neatly as she passed it to those members. The leader's expression changed as his brows furrowed. What do you mean by this? A piece of xian paper stamped with vice group leader's badge meant that she wanted to poach them openly? Didn't she despise them for being too old? Their looks weren't high enough? Yiqing Luo smiled charmingly as her long and narrow eyes revealed a captivating charm. As you think. You. This was the first time they saw someone poaching other mercenary groups' mercenaries in such an open and above-board manner. Give up, we are Blue Dragon mercenary group's mercenaries, we will only. Don't be in a hurry to reject me. Yiqing Luo interrupted the members' oaths with a smiling face as her fair fingers waved the xian paper. I admire your characters and am extremely interested in unpolished jades like you. The faces of more than 30 members twisted. Since they were unpolished jade, what was there to admire? Weren't they supposed to boast about it when they were poaching people? What kind of disparagement was this? You need to polish yourselves. You need to find the right way to guide them. Yiqing Luo ignored the expressions on their faces as she said word by word, this is the proof that I'm giving you. You can keep it first, perhaps. You might need it in future. Of course, if you're completely sure that you want to place your future and your life on the Blue Dragon mercenary group, then you can directly tear this piece of paper. The leader of the group stared at the paper with a hesitant expression. Listening to a 15-year-old girl say in an extremely mature manner that she wanted to guide them and polish them, this piece of unpolished jade. This feeling, it was so King strange. However, none of them could refute him. They had already seen Yiqing Luo's ability in the magic beast forest. However, why was she so confident that they would definitely keep her proof? The leader's peripheral vision swept past the expressions of the few people beside him as he stretched out his hand and received that xian paper. In front of Yiqing Luo, he was about to tear it down. We don't need it. Chapter 626. Yiqing Luo spoke extremely slowly as her voice was filled with gentleness, leisurely and contented. She didn't anxiously hope that they would agree, nor did she have the feeling that it didn't matter whether they agreed or not. She just calmly stated the truth. Your choice to me doesn't have much use. But to you, it's a choice of fate. Yiqing Luo saw the leader's hand which was about to tear the paper stopped as he stiffly maintained the action of tearing the paper. He was stunned for some time before he stiffly moved his arm. What do you have to make us believe you? Yiqing Luo's smile was brimming with confidence, based on the fact that I'm Yiqing Luo. The 30 or so members were completely stunned. Just how arrogant was this young lady? Based on the fact that she was Yiqing Luo. She had that much confidence in herself? Not knowing why, the group members had an urge to believe her. In their minds, the scene of what Ji Tsang Tian had done for Lan Ling Noa appeared, which made one's heart turn cold. Looking at the ground full of corpses, their hearts ached. The main culprit of all these was Yiqing Luo. But Ji Tsang Tian definitely had something to do with it. Ji Tsang Tian abandoned his own brothers, and under his brother's cover, he left. Yet, these brothers of his had died here. Their group leader abandoned them. His 5 fingers curled up one by one. The leader of the group grabbed the piece of paper in his hand, as though he was making a huge decision. In the end, the leader kept the paper into his bosom as he gritted his teeth. I hope that we will never have the chance to meet again. Yiqing Luo smiled in disbelief. I'm afraid this chance is not too far away. The 30 or so members left angrily. Looking at their departing figures, Kitty Lee blinked her watery eyes as she hooked onto Yiqing Luo's arm. Sister, why did you give them that piece of proof? The world group, which was personally written by Yiqing Luo, was stamped by the vice group leader. This piece of paper represented Yiqing Luo. Giving this piece of paper to those people in Blue Dragon Group, wasn't she afraid that these despicable people would use that piece of proof to secretly do some sinister things? Momentarily, everyone was unable to understand Yiqing Luo's thoughts. These people, if we can rope them in and keep them for our own use, as long as we give them enough sincerity, they will definitely follow us through life and death. In just a short period of time, Yiqing Luo had already understood these people's characters. These people valued friendship and loyalty. With proper training, it wouldn't take long for them to stand on their own in the mercenary world. But aren't we going to be in the academy? Yan Xiaoyi didn't understand what Yiqing Luo meant. All the members of the world group were all students of the devil class. They went to school together and cultivated together on holidays. They only had 3 days a month. If he were to accept these people into the world group, wouldn't it be a huge mess? A portion of them are students of the Celestial Phoenix Academy. Their holidays are the same as ours. Yiqing Luo explained patiently. The other group are professional mercenaries, relying on completing missions to support themselves. We can establish a second group, and when we are all in the academy, we can represent the world group to head to the Mercenary Association to accept missions and grind for some honor points. Xiao Jin shook his head in disagreement. Even if it's the second group, they still represent the world group. If they were to use this opportunity to defame us. Chapter 627. I understand Qing Luo's intention. Long Yunzhan nodded. I agree. Yiqing Luo's lips curled as she exchanged glances with him and smiled. It was because Long Yunzhan didn't reject her intention earlier. That was why Yiqing Luo passed the proof to those group members after they left the Magic Beast Forest. Long Yunzhan didn't reject this decision. The others would also agree and listen to her. The riddle which the two of them were playing earlier was because of this matter. Seeing that Long Yunzhan had already spoken, the other youngsters had their suspicions, but they still chose to believe in their judgment. They knew that Yiqing Luo and Long Yunzhan would absolutely not harm the world group. Lil Luo, today's biggest contributor is me. Don't tell me you shouldn't give me a little special reward? An arm went past Yiqing Luo's hand as it circled around her slender waist. Following that, a refreshing and elegant sandalwood fragrance assaulted their nostrils. The man's broad embrace was tightly pressed against the woman's soft back. His smooth lower jaw was pressed against Yiqing Luo's shoulder as his voice was deep and mellow. The other hand went past her other shoulder as it clasped her lower jaw. He forced her gaze to look in his direction. Yiqing Luo's thick and dense eyelashes fluttered like a butterfly's wings. Her bright pupils reflected that peerless beauty of a face. That pair of watery peach blossom eyes gazed at her lovingly. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly trembled as she felt her cheeks turning red, as though her energy had been sucked dry by him. Evildoer. A living evildoer who could bring calamity to the country and people. Her peripheral vision saw those youngsters' ridiculing gazes, and Yiqing Luo's cheeks turned even hotter as she turned around and faced Dmo Xian as she pushed his chest. Nonsense, the biggest contributor is obviously me. Then I'll give you a reward. The man's voice had just ended when Yiqing Luo felt her lower jaw tightening. Following that, a warm touch covered her pink lips. That elegant sandalwood fragrance became more and more intense as it spread in her mouth. His kiss was strong and overbearing as it sealed her struggles and sealed her consciousness. What remained was only a kiss that was compatible with him. In Yiqing Luo's mind, it was as though there was a taut string that suddenly broke apart. A scorching flame was burning in his body. Bit by bit, it eroded her will. Yiqing Luo's little hand, which was on Dmo Xian's chest, gradually reduced in strength. Dmo Xian hugged her slender waist tighter and tighter, as though he wanted to melt her into his bones. Just as Yiqing Luo's consciousness started to blur and was about to sink into oblivion, her peripheral vision swept onto the youngsters who were standing by the side, staring at them in a daze. Yiqing Luo's face suddenly flushed red. Ah! Yiqing Luo didn't know where the energy came from as she pushed him away fiercely. Who wants your reward? This monster. If it was in private, it would be fine if the two of them were intimate. Kissing her in front of all these brothers, with so many pairs of eyes, how was she going to maintain her dignity in front of her brothers in the future? Yiqing Luo's face was so red that it looked like water was about to drip out. Qing Luo, it's all right, you guys carry on, just treat as if we don't exist. That's right, that's right. We're already used to being abused. You don't have to worry about us at all. If you want to kiss us, kiss us. If you want to hug us, hug us. The youngsters' ridiculing words came one after another. It was because of their ridicule that the atmosphere became relaxed once again. Today's exhaustion in the magic beast forest was swept away in the laughter. Hearing the youngsters' ridicule, Yiqing Luo's face turned red as she stared resentfully at Dmo Xian. But she saw him clutching his chest as his brows creased slightly. Chapter 628. Yiqing Luo's heart thumped. She suddenly thought of something as the smile on her lips disappeared. She took quick steps towards Dmo Xian as she stretched out her hand and tugged his collar. You, come with me. As expected, with this tug, she could clearly feel that his body was slightly stiff. Although Dmo Xian maintained his smile and gentle gaze. But that slight crease on his brows, Yiqing Luo saw it clearly. Go back to the mansion and have a good rest. We'll be returning to the academy tomorrow. Yiqing Luo turned her head to look at those youngsters who were sniggering behind her as she couldn't be bothered to explain to them, I'll be back later, no need to wait for me. It's alright if you don't come back, we all understand. It's the last day of the holiday, just accompany the Overlord well. Tomorrow Qing Luo still needs to go to the academy, Overlord, you'd better take it easy. Yiqing Luo. Damn it, indeed she had no way to establish her prestige, these youngsters weren't afraid of her. Little Nine. Yiqing Luo shouted and Little Nine's tail shook. The palm-sized fox instantly turned into a huge fox. Under the group of youngsters, I understand, gazes, Yiqing Luo's face turned black as she grabbed Dmo Xian's hand and leapt onto Little Nine's back. Yiqing Luo's destination was that garden which Dmo Xian had given her the map of Death God Castle. The garden was still filled with flowers as hundreds of flowers bloomed. The fragrance in the air lingered around her nose. Standing in the middle of the flowers, Dmo Xian's eyes were filled with smiles. His curved peach blossom eyes were long and narrow with a demonic charm. Little Luo, the same location, the same you and me, are you hinting me to do what we did here that day? His tone was extremely joyous. That pitch-black obsidian-like eyes started to spread out as it started to thicken. Yiqing Luo wasn't like the past, revealing a lady's coquettish side because of Dmo Xian's teasing. Her expression was grave as she grabbed Dmo Xian's extended wrist and with a tilt, she pressed him into the flowers. Yiqing Luo sat on Dmo Xian's abdomen as her hands tore his clothes. Dmo Xian caught the two little hands which were pulling randomly as he placed it by his lips and planted a kiss on it. Little Luo, are you trying to force yourself? His tone was evil, and his long and narrow eyes exuded a devilish charm that was incomparably alluring. Yiqing Luo didn't say a word as her face was still sunken, struggling to tug at his clothes. Little Luo, Dmo Xian's voice abruptly turned heavier as he tightened his grip on her wrist. Stop fooling around. Why are you hiding? Yiqing Luo sneered as her charming eyes were filled with chilliness. I forced myself on you, shouldn't you feel happy? If it was during normal times, DMO Xian would definitely turn from guest to host. Indeed, I'm very happy. DMO Xian stared into her eyes and spoke in a serious tone, but Lil Luo, you're a lady and a lady's reputation is very important. I hope that the relationship between us can be placed on our wedding night, and take it a step deeper. Pooh. Yiqing Luo's sneer grew thicker. Since when did DMO Xian know what reputation was? He had always done things his own way and did not care about what others thought of him. Talk about honor with her now? But, I can't wait. Yiqing Luo's wrist nimbly flipped as she held DMO Xian's hand, while her other hand speedily unbuttoned his clothes. A soft sigh which could not be heard came from the depths of DMO Xian's throat. His clothes were open, revealing a muscular chest. But on that chest, there was an extremely glaring red, piercing Yiqing Luo's eyes. Chapter 629. Why didn't you tell me you were injured? Yiqing Luo stared at the red gauze, her fingers trembling as she touched it. However, before he could touch the gauze, he retracted his hand while trembling. DMO Xian was injured. The high and mighty Di Zun was injured. It's not a big injury. I'm fine. DMO Xian's lips twitched slightly as he raised his hand to caress Yiqing Luo's fine black hair. I didn't tell you because I was afraid you would be worried. There was so much blood flowing from this wound, how could it be just a small injury? If it was just a small injury, a few pills could solve it. Why would there be so much blood? Suddenly, Yiqing Luo recalled something. That map. The bloodstains on the map. Yiqing Luo's heart suddenly trembled. Your injury. Was it when you went to Death God Castle to help me draw the map, you got injured? That's right, the bloodstains on the map. Ever since DMO Xian dashed into Death God Castle and brought her away from Zhu Wu Xian, she thought that she had guessed wrongly and assumed that DMO Xian wasn't injured, hence she didn't probe further. If she hadn't noticed that something was wrong with his expression, she probably wouldn't have noticed it. A sense of vexation and guilt towards DMO Xian arose from the bottom of her heart. She was not a qualified woman who could stay by DMO Xian's side. She had never properly cared for DMO Xian. It would only create one trouble after another for DMO Xian. The more she thought, the tighter Yiqing Luo's heart became. There was a suffocating feeling in her throat. It was so uncomfortable that she couldn't even breathe smoothly. His nose felt sour, as if something was about to gush out of his eyes. No. DMO Xian answered without any hesitation, seeing through the guilt and thoughts in Yiqing Luo's eyes. His long arm stretched out and pulled Yiqing Luo into his embrace. Don't let your imagination run wild, I'm fine. His reply was straightforward and decisive, but it also indirectly proved that this injury was indeed the injury suffered in Death God Castle. For her, he had been injured, and for her, he had stayed by her side with his injuries. He had been pretending to be fine because he didn't want her to worry. Yiqing Luo's eyes gradually turned red. How could this man be so foolish? Feeling heartache? DMO Xian's fingers slowly brushed past Yiqing Luo's cheeks, his fingertips paused at the corner of her eyes. If you can't bear to let me feel pain, kiss me and it won't hurt anymore. You. Even at this moment, he could still act like a hooligan with a straight face. Yiqing Luo stared at DMO Xian as she suddenly pushed his hand away. He took out some pills and gauze from the profound phoenix ring. You knew that I would be worried, yet you still hid the fact that you were injured. Yiqing Luo pursed her pink lips, her eyes filled with anger. You only let me know now, I'm even more worried, all right. She untied DMO Xian's bloody gauze and threw it aside. Yiqing Luo then looked seriously at the wound on DMO Xian's chest. It was a wound caused by a sharp weapon. The wound was not deep, but it happened to be close to the heart. Fortunately, DMO Xian managed to evade in time and did not suffer any fatal injuries. Sharp weapons. Yiqing Luo's pupils contracted as she was already certain that DMO Xian's injury was caused when he was challenging the mechanisms in Death God Castle. when he triggered the mechanism. That was also such an intricate map. The route towards the exquisite pagoda was drawn out clearly, and every single mechanism was marked out clearly. If it wasn't for the fact that he had tried every single mechanism, how could it be drawn out so intricately? The contours of Dmo Xian's face were extremely gentle, and the gaze which he gazed at Yi Qing Luo was filled with tenderness and pampering. One was bandaging his wound, while the other was staring at her tenderly and sweetly. The breeze blew, as the flower petals danced. Pieces of flower petals were like dancing butterflies, lingering between the two of them. Chapter 630. After Yi Qing Luo was done with the bandaging, she helped Dmo Xian to adjust his clothes properly and was about to speak. His line of sight met with a calm, sleeping face. A man with outstanding looks, no matter from which angle, was so handsome that it made one want to scream. Not knowing when, he had fallen into a deep sleep. He was in a deep sleep. Even when she slowly moved her body and laid down beside him, he didn't wake up. Usually, he was vigilant and could even sense a gust of wind. His injury was too serious. Yi Qing Luo's heart ached as she pursed her lips tightly, as she half propped up her body and leaned beside him, staring at his face. The man in his sleep, his brows were tightly knitted into a bundle. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but stretched out her hand and swept past the wrinkles between his brows, as she gently caressed it. Perhaps it was the softness of her fingers, perhaps it was the gentleness of her fingertips, perhaps it was the familiarity of her scent. That tightly knitted brows, slowly smoothed out. Lil Luo, A soft murmur spilled out from his thin lips. Following that, her hand was accurately held in the palm of the man's hand. His fingers tightened, as though he was holding the most precious thing in the world, tightly gripping it. Her heart suddenly increased the rate of its beating. Every time, it fiercely pounded against her throat. A gush of warmth slowly flowed from the bottom of her heart. She held that hand, slowly lowered her body, and planted a kiss on his pale thin lips. Silly girl. A helpless sigh spilled out from between her lips that were so tightly pressed together. The next day, Yi Qing Luo was woken up by Dmo Xian. She rubbed her eyes, got up and was about to tear open Dmo Xian's clothes, wanting to take a look at his wound, and at the same time help him change his dressing, but was stopped by Dmo Xian. She should go to the academy. Yi Qing Luo used both carrot and stick, but was unable to make Dmo Xian loosen his mouth, so she could only helplessly let him return to the palace to recuperate. She was going back to the academy today, so Dmo Xian need not worry about her leading the brothers on experience learning and getting injured. Sending Dmo Xian off on little Nine with her eyes, Yi Qing Luo then returned to the mansion alone. The youngsters had long put on their academy uniforms, as they lined up neatly in the garden. When they saw Yi Qing Luo, they started to tease Yi Qing Luo that she really didn't return for the entire night. But teasing was just teasing, they still understood Yi Qing Luo's character very well. They were all clear that there was nothing between Yi Qing Luo and Dmo Xian. They were tactful enough not to intentionally ask where Dmo Xian had gone to. Amidst the laughter, everyone's serious mood from early in the morning also became relaxed. The 3 days of their holiday were spent in abundance. There were more than 10 youths who had successfully advanced a grade in these 3 days. As for those who did not advance, they could clearly feel that their physical fitness and overall strength had been greatly improved. This was the power that came from constantly fighting in dangerous situations. Qing Luo. Xiao Jin walked over with a space bag. Last night, Shi Ju came back with a space bag in his mouth. It was filled with. He took out a black suit from his pocket. The flame-like cherry blossom embroidery on his right sleeve was extremely obvious. Wasn't it the uniform that the Blue Dragon mercenary group people wore yesterday? It must be Yi Qing Luo's order for Shi Ju to retrieve these uniforms. Why did Yi Qing Luo want these uniforms? Could it be that she wanted them to wash it before wearing it? Not to mention that these uniforms were tattered in this round's experience learning, ugly and smelly. Just these uniforms, if those Blue Dragon mercenary group members wore them, they wouldn't want to wear them anymore. Chapter 631. Xiao Jin didn't understand why as he carried his space bag and turned around, calling the youngsters to retrieve firewood from the kitchen as he directly set up a fire in the courtyard. We've given Blue Dragon Mercenary Group 54 sets. Yiqing Luo suddenly opened her mouth as she called out to Xiao Jin, before you burn it, count how many sets there are. These sets of clothes were indeed brought back by her. Even the group uniforms on those corpses who had died at the entrance of the Magic Beast Forest, Yiqing Luo also asked Shi Ju to bring them back. She picked up the number of sets which Ji Tsangtian had worn away. Based on Ji Tsangtian's character, after he returned to his own camp and saw his disheveled self, then seeing those 30 over members returning, looking at the clothes they were wearing, he would recall the humiliation he had suffered in the Magic Beast Forest. He would definitely be fuming with rage. She asked them to change out of their clothes and throw them out of sight and out of mind. Yiqing Luo wouldn't give them any chance to malign the world group. If one set of clothes was used, it could possibly cause a huge impact on the world group. Yiqing Luo wanted to eliminate all possibilities. Xiao Jin seemed to have understood something as he laughed out loudly. You're the one who thought it through thoroughly. Burn. Burn all these clothes. Anyway, for the next 1 month, they wouldn't be able to wear the group uniform which belonged to them. They had plenty of time to customize a new batch of uniforms. The material and enchantment as well as the gravity belt had to be done meticulously. These were all things which Yan Xiaoyi had discussed with the tailor's shop early on. They only needed to wait for a month before they could collect it from the tailor's shop. Not long later, the courtyard was lit up with flames as pieces of uniforms were thrown into the flames. A total of 54 pieces, no more and no less. Xiao Jin was burning as he told Yiqing Luo the numbers which he had counted. Yiqing Luo nodded as her heart which was hanging in the balance was finally put down. Lighting a fire in the courtyard so early in the morning, are you trying to burn down this huge mansion? Suddenly an old but powerful voice was heard from the end of the courtyard. Following that, they saw an elderly dressed in a white robe walking over leisurely. It seemed as though he had just casually taken a step, but in a blink of an eye, he had already appeared in front of Yiqing Luo and the others. Expert. This was absolutely an expert. The youngsters' gazes were fixed on that elderly. Why did he look a little familiar? Yiqing Luo also had this feeling. He furrowed his brows and stared at the old man as he thought about it for a long time. In the end, he said with uncertainty, "Are you Holy Pirate?" The old man raised his eyebrows and raised his hand to touch his grizzled hair. His eyes were bright. After taking a bath, trimming my hair, and changing my clothes, I'm so handsome that you can't recognize me? It was really Holy Pirate. One must know that when he was rescued from Death God Castle's dungeon, he was a person who had not bathed for 10 years. His body was so dirty that he was almost covered in lice and bedbugs. How could she recognize a face that was completely black? After bringing God Thief back to the mansion, Yiqing Luo's entire mind was on the Dark Forces matters and the other missions, totally throwing him aside. He didn't expect Holy Pirate to take care of himself. God knows how much water he had to wash himself to be so clean. Little girl, are you going to the academy? Go in peace. Leave the mansion and the world group to me. God Thief patted his chest. Why did Yiqing Luo feel that this old man was extremely unreliable? Chapter 632. Yiqing Luo felt that this old man was even more unreliable. However, he was still an old man that he had picked up. Moreover, he was once the #1 holy thief in the Nirvana realm. Even if he had not been able to stretch his muscles and bones for 10 years, he would be able to recover his skills in a few days. Even if he wasn't as powerful as before, he still had the ability to protect himself. As long as he could find the feeling he once had, the holy pirate of the past could return. After all, to become the #1 holy thief, one had to rely on absolute power. She could not bring Holy Pirate to the college. It would be a good idea to let Holy Pirate manage the mansion. What's more, the 30-odd members of the Blue Dragon group might come to report to him. Yiqing Luo still handed the manor over to God Thief to look after. As for the world group, Yi Qing Luo didn't hand it over to God Thief, only instructing him repeatedly that if anyone were to bring the proof of the world group's seal over to them, then leave them behind. By the time they had arranged everything, it was already morning, which was around 7 or 8 in the morning. Yi Qing Luo and the rest left the mansion. They didn't arrive at the academy together. Instead, they split up into several teams. If he were to stay by Yi Qing Luo's side, he would probably become the center of attention again. It would also easily expose the devil class to the public. Yi Qing Luo only brought Yi Fengyu along and walked openly through the academy's main entrance. Today was the first day of school, and there was a sea of people at the entrance of the academy, with an endless stream of horses and carriages. After Yi Qing Luo and Yi Fengyu walked into the academy, they indeed became the center of attention. After all, what happened in the Three Springs sect on a holiday was too unbelievable. First, Yi Qing Jian and Leng Fenghua's secret affair was exposed. It was exposed that they were in the Crown Prince Palace's garden, in broad daylight. Moreover, Yi Qing Qian was tormented till she was injured. Of course, if Yi Qing Qian and Leng Fenghua were in love with each other, then it was perfectly justifiable. But unfortunately, Leng Fenghua was Yi Qing Qian's seventh sister and also Yi Qing Luo's fiancée. This was the loss of morals, this was the wrong view of the world. Yi Qing Qian's deeds naturally affected Three Springs sect. Naturally it would implicate Yi Qing Luo. It was like someone's father was a murderer. Everyone would subconsciously think that the whole family was a murderer when they saw that person's family. While everyone was sympathizing with Yi Qing Luo, at the same time, they felt that Yi Qing Luo and Yi Qing Jian were almost the same, after all they were taught by the same father. But, after that, news of Yi Qing Luo clashing with the high profound class students at Heavenly Fortune Inn and finally being taken away by the Overlord's sacred beast, Nine-Tailed Fox, started to spread. While everyone was ridiculing Yi Qing Qian, no one dared to bring Yi Qing Luo along. It could be said that during the 3 days of vacation, the first miss and seventh miss of the Three Springs sect manor had become the talk of the town. You still have the guts to come to the academy? How shameless. Just as everyone was discussing in hushed voices, a sharp and ear-piercing voice rang out. Shortly after, a young girl walked over with her hands on her hips. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered, but the young lady was standing right in front of her and stretched out her hand to block her. This was the entrance to the academy, and there were many students coming and going. On seeing that someone dared to find fault with Yi Qing Luo, they all stopped in their tracks to watch excitedly. Your eldest sister did such a shameless thing and was chased out of Three Springs City. She's setting off today, aren't you going to send her off? That young lady spoke in a weird tone. Shengguan Liuli. Chapter 633. You. Shengguan Liuli's face turned gloomy as she stared fiercely at Yi Qing Luo. Such a huge matter had happened in Three Springs sect. How could Yi Qing Luo still remain so calm? Yi Qing Qian was her elder sister. The Three Springs sect was her backer. Now that there were rumors and slanderous discussions, she could still smile. Was she intentionally acting so calm, or was she too cold-blooded? Shengguan Liuli's heart seeped out a sliver of coldness. Yi Qing Luo's gaze casually swept past the surrounding students as her charming eyes remained calm. Firstly, whatever Yi Qing Qian did, she's shameless and it has nothing to do with me. Secondly, you're an unmarried young lady and in front of everyone, you dare to say such shameless things that Yi Qing Luo had done. This is enough to prove that the thoughts in your mind are also dirty and shameless. When Yi Qing Luo said the second point, Shengguan Liuli's steely green face instantly turned red. She clenched her teeth tightly as her 5 fingers clutched the corner of her clothes as her fingertips turned white. You're talking nonsense. I didn't. However, Shengguan Liuli's rebuttal didn't have much confidence. Her imposing manner had been completely suppressed by Yi Qing Luo. The surrounding students' gazes towards Shengguan Liuli had also changed. Those pairs of unclear eyes looked at Shengguan Liuli as though her mind was really filled with dirty thoughts. There were even some male students who had already revealed a covetous gaze towards her. Shangguan Liuli had never suffered such humiliation before. Since when had she been stared at in such a blatant manner? Her entire face instantly flushed red from embarrassment and indignation. Her petite body was shaking non-stop as a pair of watery eyes stared resentfully at Yiqing Luo. But Yiqing Luo's expression remained calm, as though she hadn't noticed Shangguan Liuli's vengeful gaze. Or perhaps she totally didn't put Shangguan Liuli in her eyes. Following that, Yiqing Luo's pink lips curled as she revealed an elegant smile. Thirdly, are you sure that Yiqing Qian will be chased out of Three Springs City today? What do you mean? Shangguan Liuli was startled, her beautiful eyes widening. Yiqing Luo's eyes narrowed slightly, her long and narrow eyes revealed a hint of ridicule regarding the second half of the rumor. I'm afraid the chess player did not tell you about it. A chess player? No matter how silly Shangguan Liuli was, she understood Yiqing Luo's meaning. She was being used by someone? Looking at Yiqing Luo's serene eyes, Shangguan Liuli's heart trembled as she suddenly thought of something as her face turned pale. Yesterday, when she had a flower tea gathering with the other ladies from the noble families, she overheard Lu Shuiyu and Lu Shuilan discussing the Three Springs sect. That was when he found out that something huge had happened to Three Springs sect's Yiqing Jian. The Lu sisters kept on shifting the topic to Yiqing Luo, talking about it in a few words. Yiqing Luo and Yiqing Jian were sisters, so naturally they received the same education. Yiqing Qian was shameless and Yiqing Luo must also be a shameless lady. Following that, they started on various topics, pointing out that Yiqing Luo was able to gain Dmo Xian's favor, was absolutely because of her foxy skills. Hearing these, Shangguan Liuli, who originally bore a grudge against Yiqing Luo, how could she possibly let go of this chance to ridicule Yiqing Luo? Her reputation was the most important thing for a lady. Because of this, Shangguan Liuli blocked the academy's entrance early in the morning, just to humiliate Yiqing Luo fiercely, ruining her reputation, making her the laughing stock of the entire Three Springs City. But Yiqing Luo's performance was too calm. So calm that Shangguan Liuli started to feel a little guilty. The second half of the rumor. We'll be able to see it soon. Yiqing Luo's gaze shot towards a direction not too far away, as a teasing smile flashed past her eyes. Chapter 634. As expected, at the instance when Yiqing Luo's words had just ended, she heard astonished cries coming from the huge crowd of people. Following that, a luxurious and exquisite carriage which was inlaid with sparkling crystals was seen slowly approaching. Wasn't the person in front of the carriage the current second prince Ling Fengying? Ever since Ling Fenghua fell from power, second prince's status had risen along with it. Numerous powerhouses and nobles all treated second prince as the crown prince's candidate, which was the future monarch. Even now, the crown prince's position had yet to be decided. But after all, in the entire West continent, only second prince had the ability to become the crown prince. Because of this, when these people saw Ling Fengying, all of them revealed a fawning smile as they went up to him in an attempt to attract his attention. Especially those elders who were sending their children to school, they all went up to greet him. Ling Fengying maintained his gentle and refined smile from start to finish, his handsome features looked innocent and harmless. If one didn't know him well, just based on his looks, they would only think that he was a weak young man without the strength to truss a chicken, a soft-footed prawn that could be easily pinched. This kind of person easily made others feel close to him. This kind of person was even more welcomed by the imperial court's ministers. But to be able to grow up in the royal family, to be able to establish a batch of imperial court forces under Ling Fenghua's oppression, and also to pull in a portion of the external forces unknowingly. Finally, after Ling Fenghua met with a mishap, every step he took was so natural. Yiqing Luo didn't believe that this second prince was someone who was easy to deal with. Shangguan Liuli saw Ling Fengying at one glance as her eyes shone, its second prince. That dainty face was an obvious bashfulness of a young lady meeting her sweetheart. She took quick steps forward and squeezed past those people who were flocking towards her as she pounced beside Ling Fengying, second prince. Ling Fengying, who had just flipped down the horse, had a smile on his face, as though he was bathed in the spring breeze, warming the earth. He passed the reins to the footboy and his arm was covered by a touch of warmth. Lowering his eyes, he saw Shangguan Liuli's bashful smile as she looked at him with a beaming face. "Second prince, you haven't come to Shangguan residence to see me for a long time." Her tone was filled with tenderness. The onlookers looked at the two of them with dubious gazes. The second prince was so familiar with the daughter of the Shangguan family. From time to time, he would go to the Shangguan residence to visit the daughter of the Shangguan housekeeper. Could it be that the second prince was going to marry into the Shangguan family? Fifth Miss Shangguan. Leng Fengying calmly retracted his hand as he silently pulled the distance between the two of them apart with a gentle smile. "A few days ago I consulted Shangguan family head about the plan to control the flood in the North Village and it has already started to be implemented. I've been busy with this matter and forgot to thank Shangguan family head. It's this prince's fault." In just a few words, he had completely explained the ambiguous meaning in Shangguan Liuli's words. Everyone was enlightened. It turned out that the second prince went to the Shangguan residence to ask for a plan to control the flooding in Beituan. The second prince was indeed a benevolent prince who cared for the common people. As expected, he was a smart man. He was definitely not on the same level as Leng Fenghua. If this time round, even if she hadn't opened up an entrance for Leng Fengying, not too long in the future, Leng Fengying would use his own method to open up an entrance for himself. The moment the words about controlling the flood were explained, naturally no one would doubt the authenticity of these words. Because Shangguan family head was once an official in the imperial court, hence he was in charge of this aspect. Chapter 635. However, Shangguan Liuli, who was fixated on her Prince Charming, did not bring her brain with her. Or rather, Shangguan Liuli had no brains at all. She totally didn't understand the meaning in Leng Fengying's words, nor did she notice the distance that Leng Fengying had pulled apart from her. The second prince cares about the people. Father will not blame you. Saying that, Shangguan Liuli took another step forward as she stretched out her hand to hook onto Leng Fengying's arm once again. "Second prince, even if the problem of controlling the flood is settled, you can also come to Shangguan residence to take a look at Liuli. Liuli really misses you." Hearing this sentence, Yiqing Luo almost coughed out. Should she say that Shangguan Liuli was stupid, or that she knew how to play with people's hearts? Shangguan Liuli would stop her at the academy's entrance and use Yiqing Qian's matter to ruin her reputation. She probably knew the importance of a good reputation to a woman. But unfortunately, the expression on Shangguan Liuli's face and the words she said revealed her admiration towards Leng Fengying, as well as her private ambiguous relationship with Leng Fenghua. She was certain that Leng Fengying would marry her. One must know that Shangguan Liuli's performance in front of everyone had totally tagged her as Leng Fengying. If Leng Fengying didn't marry her, Shangguan Liuli would probably be single for the rest of her life. After all, Leng Fengying's identity was there for all to see. It was very likely that he would be the future monarch. Who would dare to touch a woman that the monarch might have had an affair with? What Yiqing Luo was thinking was naturally what everyone was thinking. All of them discussed in low voices, trying to guess the relationship between Shangguan Liuli and the second prince. Right at this moment, the curtain of the luxurious carriage was pinched by a white finger, and then a sweet-sounding voice was heard. "Fifth Miss Shangguan, in the heart of the second prince, there is only the West Continent and all the common people of the West Continent. Could it be that fifth Miss Shangguan hopes that the second prince will abandon the common people and go to the Shangguan residence to see you every day?" His tone was filled with disdain and mockery. Ding ding dong dong, the sound of jewelry colliding against each other could be heard. Immediately, a woman dressed in luxurious clothing came out of the carriage. Leng Fengying immediately went over and stretched out his hand to support that woman. Shangguan Liuli's hand, which she tried to pull over, naturally missed. That young lady's little hand was placed on the back of Leng Fengying's hand as she slowly walked down the carriage. When everyone saw the woman's face clearly, they all cried out in disbelief. Yiqing Qian. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened in shock. This woman was wearing a greenish-white academy uniform, and there were a few dazzling accessories on her waist. The most eye-catching thing about her was her face. Her makeup was exquisite, and her deliberately trimmed eyebrows were full of heroic spirit. Her seemingly simple yet graceful hair was pinned with a dazzling hairpin and hair ornament. Wasn't this the Yi Qingqian whom the monarch had assigned to King Ping, the one who was going to follow King Ping to the fief? At this time, wasn't she already in the carriage arranged by the monarch and leaving Three Springs City? She actually wore the academy uniform and appeared in the Heavenly Academy. Moreover, he had come together with the second prince. For so many years, the second prince had always kept a low profile and had a good character. He had never had any bad rumors with any woman. If one were to say that Shangguan Liuli's ambiguous words had stirred up gossip in everyone's hearts, most people still did not quite believe it. But the minute they saw Yi Qingqian, their gossipy hearts started to boil. Second prince and Yi Qingqian? Who was Yi Qingqian? Second prince's future sister-in-law. She had a relationship with second prince's eldest brother. How did second prince get involved with Yi Qingqian? And from the looks of this situation, from second prince's attitude towards Yi Qingqian, it was obviously. Chapter 636. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. Shangguan Liuli was stunned. She wanted to ask, the male god in her heart, holding the hand of the woman whom she despised from the bottom of her heart, walking arrogantly in front of her, how would she feel? Shangguan Liuli only knew that a cord in her brain had snapped. Suddenly, it exploded, leaving only a blank space. Her body had already started to move according to Shangguan Liuli's most genuine thoughts. She speedily walked in front of Leng Fengying, blocking his path as she stared fiercely at Yi Qingqian. Second prince, what's your relationship with this slut? The surrounding crowd stuck their heads out, expressing that they were extremely curious about the answer to this question. Fifth Miss Shangguan, what relationship I have with second prince, is none of your business. Yi Qingqian's brows rose as her lips curled into a contemptuous smile. A good dog doesn't block the way. Fifth Miss Shangguan, please move aside. You actually dare to call me a dog? Shangguan Liuli's cheeks flushed red, especially that smirk of ridicule in Yi Qingqian's eyes, pierced deeply into her eyes. Shangguan Liuli bit her lower lip tightly, suppressing the surging anger in her chest as she stubbornly looked at Leng Fengying, second prince. Don't be cheated by this vixen, she's simply a shameless slut. With a bam, Shangguan Liuli's petite body was sent flying. Yi Qingqian retracted her hand as that usually gentle white lotus face was filled with arrogance, an unconcealable arrogance. Shangguan Liuli, don't be so shameless when I give you face. Who gave you the right to insult me? This action made the surrounding students gasp in shock. In their eyes, Yi Qingqian was a pure white lotus. Yi Qingqian was the #1 beauty in Three Springs City. She was beautiful, had high innate talent, had a gentle character and treated others with courtesy. In other words, she was a big white lotus who gathered all the advantages. This was the first time they saw Yi Qingqian revealing such an arrogant and haughty expression. This was also the first time they saw Yi Qingqian slapping someone without any explanation. Yi Qingluo was also slightly shocked. She squinted her eyes as she stared at Yi Qingqian with interest. It turned out that her big sister, who was like a white lotus, had completely darkened after experiencing this incident. But that's right. His reputation and whatnot were already ruined. No matter how Yi Qingqian acted, or how she acted as a white lotus. The people of Three Springs City wouldn't believe it, and neither would the people of the West Continent. Stealing his sister's fiancé was the same as stealing his sister's fiancé. Rolling around with his sister's fiancé was the same as rolling around with his sister's fiancé. Everything was the truth. There was no way to refute that. It would be better to just turn evil and not bother to wear that hypocritical mask anymore. In any case, he would be scolded for pretending to be innocent. Even if he turned dark, he would still be scolded. Darkening, at least he felt good in his heart, and he didn't have to be so aggrieved. He had to admit that Yi Qingqian's move was extremely good. As though noticing Yi Qingluo's gaze, that arrogant lady's eyebrows rose as her vision shot towards Yiqing Luo. Then, a murderous look flashed across her eyes. She lifted her hand and wiped it across her neck. Her fiery red lips curled into an arrogant, cold smile. Her lips wriggled as she spat out a few words soundlessly. "You, just wait and see." Yiqing Luo's expression didn't change as she didn't respond to Yiqing Qian's provocation. From the time she heard the high-profound class discussing about Yiqing Qian and second princes hooking up, Yiqing Luo guessed that this big sister White Lotus was like a weed with tenacious vitality. Yiqing Qian was still alive. As long as Yiqing Qian was given a chance to make a comeback, she would disregard everything to get this chance. Chapter 637. But what made Yiqing Luo curious was, what conditions did Yiqing Qian set out to attract Ling Fengying's wild ambition? He didn't care about Yiqing Qian's current disreputable reputation, which would affect his current status, and personally sent Yiqing Qian to the academy to build up her reputation. With second prince as her backing, everyone's discussions and ridicule towards Yiqing Qian were more or less restrained. Shangguan Liuli was beaten into a daze. She sat on the ground in a daze, clutching her swollen red cheek, as blood seeped out from the corner of her mouth. Yiqing Qian actually hit him? Yiqing Qian, that slut, actually dared to hit her? Shangguan Liuli was infuriated. With a sudden sound, she sprang up from the ground, as she raised her hand and sent a slap towards Yiqing Qian's face. "You slutty vixen, I asked you to hit me. I asked you to use your unrestrained nature to seduce second prince." Shangguan Liuli had always been arrogant and willful. Since young, she had only suffered a loss in Yiqing Luo's hands. At this moment, Yiqing Qian also dared to press on top of her. Especially Yiqing Qian, who had snatched away the male god in her heart. Shangguan Liuli instantly shifted her hatred towards Yiqing Luo onto Yiqing Qian. But before she could pounce on her, a figure dashed out from the crowd, blocking Shangguan Liuli's way. Following that, she heard an apologetic voice. "Second prince, eldest Miss Yi, my sister and I had a small conflict today, and I've been suppressing my anger in my heart, so I acted up for no reason, disturbing second prince and eldest Miss Yi. It's my sister's fault, I apologize on behalf of my sister." Third brother. Shangguan Liuli's eyes widened, as she stared in disbelief at the man who was tugging her. Shangguan Fengyi's hand, at a place where no one could see, pinched Shangguan Liuli's flesh fiercely. Shangguan Liuli cried out in pain, as her eyes instantly turned red, as she covered her face aggrievedly, shaking off Shangguan Fengyi's hand. Stomping her feet, she turned around and ran away crying. "Second prince, eldest Miss Yi, I'm sorry." Shangguan Fengyi bowed his body slightly. "No worries." Ling Fengying smiled faintly as he shook his head. Perhaps some of this prince's actions had caused fifth Miss Shangguan to misunderstand. "I'm indebted to fifth Miss Shangguan's misplaced love." Shangguan Fengyi's face darkened. Ling Fengying saying these words in front of everyone totally destroyed Shangguan Liuli's reputation. Shangguan Liuli admired the second prince and was rejected by him. Once the news got out, would Shangguan Liuli still be able to find a husband? Which young master would dare to accept her? If Ling Fengying hadn't said these words, Shangguan Fengyi could still use other words to smooth over Shangguan Liuli's earlier actions. But Ling Fengying totally didn't give Shangguan Liuli this chance. Was he standing up for Yiqing Qian? Shangguan Fengyi was overwhelmed with shock as he subconsciously took a look at Yiqing Qian. But he discovered that Yiqing Qian's pretty face was covered with a layer of arrogant frost, looking at him with a smile that didn't look like a smile. That gaze was filled with a strong warning. She was totally different from the usual Yiqing Qian. It was as though he was a completely different person. Shangguan Fengyi lowered his head and looked away. He murmured, "Then I shall not disturb second prince and eldest Miss Yi." Saying that, he chased after the direction which Shangguan Liuli ran towards. Ling Fengying and Yiqing Qian held hands as he sent Yiqing Qian into the academy before he stopped in his tracks. Standing at the entrance of the academy, he remained silent for a moment before he turned around and returned to the carriage. This action seemed as though he treasured Yiqing Qian a lot. But in Yi Qing Luo's eyes, she only felt that Lang Fengming was completing a mission. A mission which he had discussed with Yi Qing Qian. There were no feelings between them. Chapter 638. Standing by the side of the carriage, Lang Fengming didn't directly mount the horse. Instead, he stood on the spot and remained silent for quite a while, as his peripheral vision shot towards Yi Qing Luo's direction. Then, he leaped onto his horse and led a group of people away in a grandiose manner. Yi Qing Luo's eyes narrowed as she was slightly astonished. Elder sister, eldest sister she. Yi Fengyu frowned as he thought of Yi Qing Qian just now and couldn't help but have goosebumps. That kind of Yi Qing Qian was totally different from the Yi Qing Qian in his memories. Don't bother about her. Yi Qing Luo ruffled Yi Fengyu's hair. Next time you see her, just avoid her. Now, she doesn't even want to wear that gentle mask anymore. She won't be soft-hearted towards you. Yi Fengyu was stunned. All right, go in. Don't forget to report to Teacher Guiyu. Yi Qing Luo patted his face, grabbed his shoulder and pushed him towards the school gate. Teacher Gui, you should be very interested in our 3 days of experience learning. Sister, what are you going to do? Kids shouldn't ask too many questions. After sending Yi Fengyu away, Yi Qing Luo didn't enter the academy but blended into the crowd and quietly disappeared from everyone's sight. Everyone's attention was focused on Yi Qing Jian and Lang Fengming, so naturally no one noticed Yi Qing Luo's disappearance. Yi Qing Luo arrived at the back alley of the Heavenly Academy with ease. This was the place where she barged into when she first came to the Heavenly Academy. It was also here that he was assassinated by the triplets of Godless Island, the 3 evils of Godless. At this moment, the back alley was still silent, without the slightest sign of life. Yi Qing Luo stopped at a dead end as her voice was chilly. Aren't you looking for me? Why are you hiding? Are you worried about being discovered? As soon as he finished speaking, the sound of light footsteps came from behind him. Following that, she heard Lang Fengying's gentle voice ringing behind her. Yes, 7th Mississippi, what's the matter, second prince? Yi Qing Luo raised her brows and turned around with a playful smile. Earlier, before Lang Fengming mounted the horse and left, he specially took a look at her as his lips moved slightly. Yi Qing Luo could read lips. He asked her to meet him in the back alley. Coincidentally, she also had something which she wanted to discuss with Lang Fengming. After all, the relationship between them could be considered to be a cooperative one. 7th young mistress of the night is so intelligent. You should understand why I am looking for you. Lang Fengming was indeed an intelligent man, and right now when he was conversing with Yi Qing Luo, he had automatically changed his self-address to I, indicating his respect towards Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo covered her mouth and chuckled. Her eyes were glowing. Second prince didn't say anything. No matter how intelligent I am, I'm not a roundworm in his stomach. Don't you have anything to ask me? Of course there is, but... Yi Qing Luo dragged her words. Will you answer truthfully? Yes. Lang Fengming spat out a word without any hesitation. I owe you a favor, so I will answer whatever questions you ask me. That pair of gentle eyes stared straight at Yi Qing Luo, filled with sincerity. As though he was expressing his determination to Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Luo squinted her eyes in interest. To tell the truth, before this, she totally had no impression of Lang Fengming at all. It was just that when he was dealing with Lang Fenghua, he deliberately investigated whether there was anyone in the current imperial family who could be on par with Lang Fenghua. From the investigations, Lang Fengming was an extremely mediocre prince. His innate talent was average and his deeds were average. Especially under Lang Fenghua's intentional oppression, his entire person could be described as ordinary. As for her, choosing Lang Fengming was based on her direct observation towards the imperial family. Chapter 639. From what Yi Qing Luo thought, Lang Fengming was much more dangerous than Lang Fenghua. The facts had proven that Yi Qing Luo had guessed correctly based on her own view of the royal family. She had taken the right step. However, would their cooperation be affected because of Yi Qing Qian? Yi Qing Luo crossed her arms over her chest. What's the relationship between you and Yi Qing Qian? As you can see. Leng Fengming replied without any hesitation. Yi Qing Luo's lips twitched. You call this an answer? What did he mean by the relationship she saw? In other words, no matter what she thought, the relationship was there, and he wouldn't deny it or admit it? You call that a truthful answer? Leng Fengming smiled but didn't say a word. Yi Qing Luo's eyes twitched as she turned around and left. 7th Miss Yi. Leng Fengming hurriedly blocked Yi Qing Luo's way. Although his facial features were not outstanding, there was a unique charm to his gentle face. I don't mean it in that way. Leng Fengming explained. A cold glint flashed past Yi Qing Luo's eyes as she squinted at the arm in front of her. If you don't have the sincerity to talk to me, then don't waste my time. I'm not that free to play riddles with you here. Leng Fengming was indeed a talent and his ability was much stronger than Leng Fenghua's. However, for so many years, under the oppression of Leng Fenghua, he was still able to form his own faction, and even after Leng Fenghua fell from power, he was able to obtain a voice of support. This also resulted in his habit of being cautious and secretive. And this point, towards Yi Qing Luo who liked to be clean and decisive, it was extremely irritating. Since she had chosen to cooperate with Leng Fengming, she had already paved a path for Leng Fengming to quickly destroy Leng Fenghua. He would no longer cooperate with anyone else. Furthermore, in the entire imperial family, who else but him could threaten his position? There was no doubt that the position of crown prince belonged to Leng Fengming. From Yi Qing Luo's point of view, since they were working together, then they should choose to trust each other and work together happily. Whereas until now, Leng Fengming still harbored suspicions towards her. Since they didn't trust each other, there was no need to continue their partnership. 7th young mistress of the night, of course, I sincerely want to talk to you. Leng Fengming gave a gentle smile as he put down the arm which was placed horizontally in front of Yi Qing Luo. I believe with 7th Miss Ye's intelligence, you will definitely be able to tell that Yi Qing Qian and I are not that kind of relationship. Reason. Yi Qing Luo couldn't be bothered to beat around the bush with him. Leng Fengming's eyelids drooped down as he shook his head. Forgive me for not being able to say. Can't say. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes as her vision swept past his face. Because you want Yi Qing Qian's power? Saying that, Leng Fengming looked at Yi Qing Luo in astonishment, as though he was in shock. How did she know? As expected, Yi Qing Luo's eyes sunk slightly as her expression turned grave. That's right, who wouldn't want Yi Qing Qian's power? She was only a teenage girl, but she had already reached the earth-profound realm. If she trained well, with her talent, she would definitely become a rare genius girl in the world. Who didn't want to keep her for their own use? Especially, Yi Qing Qian still had the dark forces as her backing. Thinking about it. Hence, Yi Qing Qian made Leng Fengming sign a soul contract with the dark forces, using the power as bait, making use of Leng Fengming's identity and status to give herself a chance to make a comeback. The current Leng Fengming had just chased Leng Fenghua off the crown prince's position. He urgently needed to do something or use his own ability to prove that he was the only candidate for the crown prince's position. In this era where martial arts were revered and the strong were revered. Chapter 640. Yi Qing Luo couldn't help but laugh. The curve of her lips was extremely enchanting. Gu Pan's charming eyes raised slightly, outlining a long and narrow evil charm. Second Prince, let me give you a piece of advice. If you don't cultivate your strength on your own, even if you forcefully use it on yourself, it won't be yours in the end. Leng Fengming was stunned as a glint circulated in his eyes. He had totally not expected that before he even said anything, Yi Qing Luo had already guessed everything. Don't use this kind of judging gaze to size me up, I'm not your enemy. Yi Qing Luo narrowed her eyes. Of course, we will not be in a cooperative relationship. Leng Fengming was just about to open his mouth when he stopped. 7th young Miss Yi, aren't we? The moment you got together with Yi Qing Qian, the cooperation between us had ended. Yi Qing Luo said straightforwardly, of course, you don't need to have any psychological burden. I will help you, not because I want to. Yes, at the end of the day, they were just using each other. Ling Fenghua wanted to harm her. Yi Qingqian wanted to return the scheme to her. She wanted to retaliate, and it wasn't as simple as killing the other party. Instead, it was to crush the opponent's mentality and destroy the things that they cared about bit by bit. As for Ling Fengying, he was just a chess piece to destroy Ling Fenghua. 7th Young Miss Yi. Ling Fengying's gentle brows creased slightly as his tone turned anxious. We can have a good talk. He was an intelligent man and naturally understood that if he became enemies with Yi Qingluo, it would mean adding another strong opponent. His current foundation wasn't stable, and since Yi Qingluo was able to destroy Ling Fenghua, she naturally had the ability to destroy him. Ling Fengying had also heard from Yi Qingqian that Yi Qingluo was a person who would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. It was definitely unwise to make an enemy out of her at this critical juncture. Thinking of this, Ling Fengying's tone turned even gentler. 7th Young Miss, kindness towards me 2 days ago, I have always remembered it in my heart. 7th Young Miss, please give me a chance to repay you, alright. Not waiting for him to finish, Yi Qingluo had already interrupted him. Let Yi Qingqian marry Ling Fenghua and leave 3 Spring City together. Ling Fengying's eyes dimmed slightly as his fingers clenched into a fist. After a long while, he slowly shook his head. 7th Miss, other than this, I can agree to any other request. Yi Qingluo scoffed lightly as she turned around and walked towards the front of the alley. Hearing the footsteps of the man behind her, she raised her hand and waved. Apart from this request, I don't need your help. The footsteps stopped. Yi Qingluo continued, you can be assured that I have no interest in your royal family's matters. You can do whatever you like, but... She glanced sideways and her peripheral vision fell onto Ling Fengying as a cold intent flashed past her narrow and long eyes. If your war implicates my people, then don't blame me for not showing any mercy. Ling Fengying was stunned on the spot. That gaze, even though it was only a glance, caused one to shudder with fear. If people don't offend me, I won't offend them. This was what Yi Qingluo conveyed to him. As long as he or Yi Qingqian didn't offend her, she didn't have the time to go against them. This woman's personality was really hard to fathom. Ling Fengying clenched his fists tightly as he watched Yi Qingluo leave, before he silently left the back alley. After Yi Qingluo entered the academy, she didn't return to the devil class but headed straight towards the library pavilion. Today was the day when the students returned to the academy, and quite a number of students headed over to the library pavilion to borrow books to read, or to verify the homework which the masters had assigned for the past 3 days. Chapter 641. Yi Qingluo's arrival made the entire library pavilion fall into a state of silence. Many students' gazes were fixed on Yi Qingluo. There were groups of students who started to discuss about 3 Springs sex matters in hushed voices. Especially earlier, the news of Yi Qingqian being personally sent to the academy by Ling Fengying had already spread throughout the entire academy. Even Yi Qingluo was being pointed at. Yi Qingluo didn't bother about other people's views as she walked towards the direction of the 2nd floor. But she had just stepped onto the 1st step when she heard someone smashing a book on the table. Student Yi Qingluo, don't you know the rules? Qingqian. Another timid voice was heard. Yi Qingluo turned her head and saw Yi Qingqian standing beside a wooden table in the magical beast category book section. Her pretty face was cold, as though she was purely reminding Yi Qingluo. And beside her were 5 to 6 high profound class female students and Lu Shuelan, who was staring at Yi Qingluo with a terrified expression. Vice President, towards those who don't abide by the academy's rules, how should the faculty council punish them? Yi Qingqian didn't see the fear in Lu Shuelan's eyes as she looked at Lu Shuelan with a smile. This was obviously directed at Yi Qingluo. This was indeed directed at Yi Qingluo. Qingqian. Lu Shuelan's face turned slightly pale as her tone raised as she berated, Student Yi Qingluo is a new student and seldom comes to the library pavilion, so naturally she doesn't know the rules here. Yi Qingqian's reputation was already in a mess during this holiday. No matter where she went, she was given the title of slut. But after she returned to the academy, she seemed to have changed into a different person. Totally not bothered about the others pointing fingers at her. Furthermore, she was so overbearing that even she couldn't suppress Yi Qingqian. Yi Qingqian's red lips were like flames as her bright smile was different from the usual gentle like water, but it was covered with a layer of threatening coldness. Really? Then what vice president means is, as long as you are a new student, you can casually violate the academy's rules? I don't mean it in that way. Lu Shuelan's throat choked, and under Yi Qingqian's gaze, her legs turned soft. What was going on? Why did Yi Qingqian suddenly become so gloomy? This pair of sisters from the Yi clan, each was weirder than the other. It's precisely because she's a new student and has violated the academy's rules once, so she should be punished as a warning to others. Yi Qingqian's voice grew colder and colder as she walked towards Yi Qingluo's direction. The students in the library didn't even dare to breathe loudly. He stared dumbfoundedly at the scene of the Yi sisters killing each other. They were all sighing silently in their hearts. Surely this Yi Qingqian couldn't have been driven crazy because her reputation was in a mess? Yi Qingqian was the White Lotus representative in everyone's hearts. His ferocious appearance was really hard to accept for a moment. Yi Qingluo squinted her eyes as she stared at the lady who was walking nearer to her, as her slightly creased brows rose. Elder sister is really free. The closer Yi Qingqian got, the clearer Yi Qingluo could see the faint black qi in her eyes. The dark force's energy was in Yi Qingqian's body. However, what made Yi Qingluo curious was, this dark force's power didn't seem to be the kind that controlled Yi Qingling and Yu Qipeng. But it was obediently attached to Yi Qingqian's body. Instead it seemed like it had already merged into one with Yi Qingqian, becoming a power that Yi Qingqian could use. Suddenly, Yi Qingluo recalled the question she asked Ling Fengying. Yi Qingqian used the dark force and Ling Fengying as bait to cooperate with him. Chapter 642. Yi Qingqian's relationship with the dark forces, not simple. According to the rules of the library pavilion, other than the students from the high profound class and the class of gods who can enter the second level of the library pavilion, the students from the middle and lower classes can only read books on the first level of the library pavilion. Students like you, Devil class, you don't even have the qualifications to enter the library pavilion. Yi Qingqian raised her chin in disdain, as she spat out the rules of the library pavilion word by word. Yi Qingluo blinked her eyes as her long eyelashes fluttered, looking extremely innocent, but, I've already been to the second story of the library pavilion twice. Yi Qingqian's face instantly turned black. Indeed, Yi Qingluo had been to the second story of the library pavilion twice. However, that did not mean that she was qualified to go up to the second floor of the library pavilion. Instead, he was punished by the instructor to tidy up the library. But he had not expected this punishment to become Yi Qingluo's capital to flaunt her prowess. Yi Qingqian was so infuriated that the black qi in her eyes grew thicker, as her eyes were filled with hatred, except for special circumstances. Before you have obtained the qualification to enter the second story of the library pavilion, you barging in without permission is against the rules of the library pavilion. Towards Yi Qingluo, how could she not hate her? She was obviously the number one beauty of the Three Springs City, the hope of the Three Springs sect, the goddess of the entire academy. Now, when everyone saw her, they would look at her with disdain. Behind her back, they kept pointing fingers at her and mocking her for being a slut. They mocked her for selling her body and herself in order to climb to a higher position. Obviously it was Ling Fenghua who seduced her first. It was Ling Fenghua who lied to her that he would marry her, give her the position of crown princess, and make her the future emperor-empress. Obviously, from the beginning to the end, she only had Ling Fenghua as a man. She and Ling Fengying were innocent. However, no one would believe her. In fact, as long as a man spoke to her or greeted her, people would stare at them and gossip about their illicit relationship. This feeling, who could stand it? Although the days when she wore a mask in the past were very tiring, however, no matter how tired he was in the past, his heart was content. She liked the feeling of people looking at her with admiration in their eyes. He liked the feeling of standing at the top of the clouds and being praised. But now, she had fallen from the clouds, into the abyss of hell, and could no longer climb back up. He was back to being himself and no longer had to wear a mask. But she wasn't happy. She couldn't accept it. There was a feeling of emptiness in his chest. All these were thanks to Yiqing Luo. It was Yiqing Luo who caused her to become like this. The more he thought about it, the more resentment he felt in his heart. Yiqing Qian couldn't help but raise her hand, as she fiercely slapped Yiqing Luo's calm and composed face. She wanted to destroy the face, the owner of the face. He wanted to dismember Yiqing Luo into 1,000 pieces, so that she would never be able to reincarnate. That intense hatred was naturally felt by Yiqing Luo. Her eyes overflowed with ridicule as she looked at Yiqing Qian's venomous eyes. When she raised her palm to swing towards her face, she directly raised her leg and kicked towards Yiqing Qian's chest. Yiqing Qian's action was totally subconscious, and by the time she reacted and tried to avoid it, a sharp pain had already spread from her chest and she was like a kite with a broken string, flying out directly. Her eyes were filled with shock. When she landed on the ground, she quickly slammed her palm against the ground. His body spun a few times in the air before he stabilized his footing. Chapter 643. The library pavilion's rules are set by you? Just because you say I don't have the right to enter doesn't mean I can't enter? Are you from the faculty council? Vice President Lu Dai didn't even say a word. What are you butting in for? Question after question, like a bombardment, smashed towards Yiqing Qian with a pitter-patter. Yiqing Luo's eyes were filled with ridicule as her lips curled upwards. You can't go up to the second story of the library pavilion, but I can go up without any obstruction. Do you believe me? Yiqing Qian clutched her chest. Yiqing Luo's kick was totally without any reservation. Yes. As a high-profound class student, even if Yiqing Qian wanted to go up to the second story of the library pavilion, she had to get the approval from the library pavilion's management and obtain the time certificate to enter the second story. She was in so much pain that her brows creased into a bundle. Her features were sinister as she stared fiercely at Yiqing Luo. I'd like to see how you're going to go up to the second story of the library pavilion. To go up to the second story of the library pavilion, one must get the library pavilion's management to open the door. Yiqing Luo, who didn't have the right to enter, how would the manager possibly open the door for her? Want to make a bet? Yiqing Luo's brows rose as she looked at her with a smile which didn't look like a smile. Yiqing Qian's pupils contracted slightly. Seeing Yiqing Luo's expression, her heart suddenly stopped, somehow feeling that there seemed to be a trap. Don't dare. Yiqing Luo sarcastically tugged her lips. If you don't have the guts, then don't be a road-blocking dog. Saying that, Yiqing Luo turned around and walked towards the second story of the library pavilion. That sarcastic smile pricked Yiqing Qian's eyes. Her slender fingers clutched her sleeves tightly as her pretty face contorted. All right. I'll bet with you. She absolutely didn't believe that Yiqing Luo had the right to enter the second story of the library pavilion. Who didn't know how to put on an act? Yiqing Luo, who had already stepped onto the second story staircase, had a flash of astonishment in her eyes as she quickly regained her original calmness and insolence. This astonishment was coincidentally caught by Yiqing Qian. Indeed, she was putting on an act. She became even more complacent. Say, how do you want to bet? This is the academy. If you want to bet money or something else, it will affect the atmosphere of the academy. Why don't you bet on something else? A clear voice came from the crowd. A slender figure walked out from the mantra book area. Xiao Yu. Yiqing Luo's eyes lit up. Ever since the dormitory was destroyed, she and Lu Xiaoyu rarely met. Lu Xiaoyu swaggered over with a palm-sized pastry in her hand. As she chewed on the pastry, she said mischievously, if Qing Luo enters the second story, then you will kneel down in front of everyone and crawl all the way to the door, shouting, 'Good sister, I'm wrong,' 3 times, how about that?" As soon as he said this, all the students in the library drew in a breath of cold air. This gamble, it was even more exciting than gambling. He was gambling with his pride. "Xiao Yu, wouldn't this bet date be too?" Qing Luo's eyes widened as she quickly walked down the stairs and grabbed Lu Xiaoyu's arm. "I'm fine." Lu Xiaoyu waved her hand with a calm face. "I've just returned to the academy, so I need something happy to stimulate the students' passion for learning. Just treat it as entertainment." "But, I'll bet." Not waiting for Qing Luo to finish stammering, Qing Jian had already opened her mouth. At this moment, Qing Jian had already determined that Qing Luo was putting on an act. She wanted Qing Luo to kneel down in front of everyone, and wanted Qing Luo to crawl out of the library pavilion's entrance. She wanted Qing Luo to not be able to lift her head up in front of everyone. Bet. 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 The surrounding students saw Qing Jian nodding her head without any hesitation, and this bet was so interesting, so they were all interested. All of them cheered with their arms raised. Chapter 644. Qing Luo laughed lightly, full of sarcasm. "I'm thinking for eldest sister's reputation." Her words paused, as though she had misspoken, as she covered her pink lips and shook her head. "I forgot, eldest sister has no reputation to speak of." These words pierced Qing Qian's smile, as it froze on her face. Her fingers clenched tightly, as the veins on her forehead popped out. "Stop the nonsense. Are you going to bet or not? Eldest sister is already embarrassed enough. Are you sure you want to bet so much?" Qing Luo squinted her eyes, as she sneered at her. "Moreover, whether I go up to the second story of the library pavilion or not, has nothing to do with eldest sister." Qing Qian was pierced by Qing Luo's words, as her pretty face was covered with a layer of frost. The black qi in the depths of her beautiful eyes formed a whirlpool. "Student Qing Luo, this is the academy. I cannot protect you in front of so many students just because you're my sister." Qing Qian clenched her teeth fiercely. "If you can go up without any obstruction, I will kneel down right now." Looked like Qing Qian had hardened her heart to embarrass Qing Luo in public. Qing Luo curled her lips in disdain, as she scoffed. Thinking of using the same method to ruin her reputation. Was it that easy? Even if her reputation was in a mess, and her temperament had a huge change, but this shell was still this shell. Her intelligence was still low. How many times had she suffered losses in her hands? But she still didn't know how to restrain herself. Not a single bit of improvement. Qing Luo didn't say anything more, as her lips hung an enchanting smile, as she turned around and walked up the stairs. All the students in the library pavilion had their gazes concentrated on Qing Luo. Seeing her step by step, she walked up to the entrance of the second story of the library pavilion, and stopped. The door of the second story of the library pavilion was carved with numerous totems of books, and on the door handle hung a fist-sized lock. There were only 2 keys to open this lock. One was in the director's hand, and the other was in the library pavilion administrator's hand. Qing Qian's face was filled with an unconcealable smile. Without the key, how would Qing Luo enter? By the time the administrator discovered that all the students had created such a ruckus in the library pavilion, he would definitely throw the troublemaker, Qing Luo, out directly. By then, Qing Luo would kneel down and complete the bet. The more he thought about it, the more excited he became. "Teacher, help me open the door to the second story." Qing Luo stood in front of the door and shouted. "Teacher? Who was it?" The students looked left and right, puzzled. The meaning of teacher was different from teacher. The headmaster was the one who taught and guided the students. As for teachers, it was to express the respect a student had for a certain elder in the academy. Who was this teacher he was referring to? Just as everyone was guessing, they heard a deafening voice that sounded like a great bell coming from afar. "He's here, he's here." Soon after, the librarian of the book collection pavilion walked over with big strides. That fierce face didn't have the usual irritation and anger. Manager? The students were astonished as they looked at the administrator, who had always had a bad temper and was always shouting at the slightest thing, walking towards Yi Qing Luo. Then, the librarian smiled. Student Yi, you came to the library to study as soon as you arrived. What a diligent child. What the hell? This was definitely King hallucination. The fierce and hot-tempered administrator, actually smiled at Yi Qing Luo. Yi Qing Qian's face instantly turned pale. She staggered backwards a few steps, but luckily she was supported by the high-profound class students in time. She had been tricked by Yi Qing Luo again? The administrator's attitude was obviously on Yi Qing Luo's side. You're tuning into the Romantic Tales YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.